Well, welcome, Yavapai community, and I am thrilled and honored to be here. So I have so much to share. I think 30 minutes is, I'm trying to squeeze everything into 30 minutes, and so we'll see how much I can cover because I've been doing this for a very long time. I've been an activist for 10 years, but prior to that, I've been an environmental scientist, researcher. In fact, I did a live blood analysis. I'm the only one to have drawn live blood from a school teacher while she was in school during a Wi-Fi school day. And within one day, her blood became completely clumpy. So it's wonderful that Valerie talked with you guys about structured water the hour before, because it is what is happening and more. And what I can do is, I can bring that whole idea of the structure really into something physical, into the reality of our community. And so what I want to share with you guys within this 30 minutes is very quickly how you can change law. We need to not only structure our bodies, the water in our bodies, and maintaining the health within our bodies, but we need to also maintain the health of the community. This is vital. We need to maintain the health of the community because by extension, our entire earth depends on this. We need to be good stewards. We are commissioned to be good stewards. That is our job. We've been negligent of this. And this is why I've had to educate people from the ground up how to navigate the government. Because sure, we understand our rights. We understand the law, both the local, the state, and the federal. However, what is really missing, the critical link that people are missing is understanding the government, how to navigate the government. Because you really won't know your rights unless you know the job duties and titles of the government people who serves you. If you don't know what they're doing, what their job is in their service to you, you're not going to know what to expect from them. And you can talk, till you're blue in the face about your personal rights, but unless you know how to navigate the government, are you actually going to make change? Okay, so making change is understanding the government structure, it's understanding the government duties. It has nothing to do with the science. Even though I come from a background of science, I understand the science backwards and forwards. But when I go into the government, into their offices, into giving testimonies, I actually don't even bring the science up. Okay, that's the last piece of information I actually give to support my case. But my job, really, when I step into the government hall, the city hall, I actually bring forth the liability that they hold through the oath of office. And whether they're a staff member, every single one of them has to play their part accurately, correctly, and thoroughly. So they're taking advantage of us because of our lack of knowledge of the government structure. Okay, so anyways, I'll just give you a little more background and bring you up to date what I've been working on. So I've been an activist for the last 10 years. I've successfully got rid of my daughter's wireless access point, WAP, or you can call it a big, huge industrial, router in her classroom in certain grades. But it was painful to see that, sure, I was successful in making, in accomplishing these things at such a minor, localized area. I really wanted, to branch this win all across the board. I'd like to see all schools protecting their children, protecting our communities. So for many years, my focus was fighting Wi-Fi in schools. And that's how I ended up drawing blood from a teacher because she was a science teacher and she didn't want it. And so we partnered up and I was able to convince, a lot of people, turn it into a video. It's actually in one of the list of videos that you guys were provided. You can tap into that. It's the Silicon Valley Health Institute presentation where it has all the blood images that I took of the teacher. But what it does is it destructures your blood. It makes it sticky. Okay. It coagulates the blood in real time. The teacher's blood was flowing one moment before she stepped into the school. And then as soon as the day was over, I took her blood. It was so sticky, it looked like flesh. And this was back in 2016. This was 7 years ago. And this was only with 2G. They were just launching 3G. So when people jump on board and say, oh, 5G is bad, it's been bad. All wireless is bad. It's been bad since the first introduction of it, since the first generation. Okay, it's just that the cumulative impacts have gone to the point where now there's so many sick people that we're, finally waking up. So I've been fighting this for 10 years because I became electrically sensitive. I became electrically sensitive about 2011. And because I have a background in environmental science, and my last job was environmental restoration project manager for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And I worked with engineers, I worked with environmental biologists, and being healthy, I knew very quickly that it must be the environment that was making me ill. And sure enough, I find out that my personal home was outfitted with Wi-Fi without my even knowing it. I didn't even know what wireless was. So anyways, very quickly, I moved through schools. In a couple of years, I started fighting the state bills because I realized that the agenda was worldwide. And it wasn't just Wi-Fi in schools. It was basically they were going to be building out more cell towers, more and more, endlessly. And when I started fighting the state bills, we won. The last bill I fought in California, SB 649, I was actually one of the first to give testimony against it. And at that time, there were 4 people who showed up, and I was one of them. And I thought, oh my goodness, we're doomed. It's like this brand new bill that allowed, this full deployment of small cell antennas, and only 4 people showed up. But I just kept at it, right? So one of the things I want to share with you guys, you just have to keep at it. It's not going to take 1 or 2 or few times. It's going to require dedication. It's actually a lifelong dedication, because we, as a community, a body of people all over the earth, we've been negligent. We've been acting as babies, expecting the government to take care of us. Well, it's time that we reverse this process, because they are ignorant. Okay, we go in there now. I go in there educating them, telling them this is their job. This is how they need to do things. They need to follow what? Due process. That is vital. They have not been following due process. That is where we got them. And this is how we were able to get our ordinance changed, was because we did 2 things. Okay, first, before we can even get into the ordinance, we actually had to get them to open up the public forum, because they're trying to, because the city attorney for my city was coaching the staff members, the city council members, the planning commissioners, all the oath of office servants, to ignore the people they're serving. Don't notice them. Don't tell them that this deployment was happening. The public has no right to know this. I said, no, but that's why you'll see sudden cell towers pop up everywhere, willy-nilly. And how did this happen? Well, your public servants who are supposed to serve you was taking the advice of a globalist city attorney who's taking their orders from higher above. And this is why the timing is so critical for us to step in. It is now, okay? Because it is not just the 5G, but it's climate change agendas, it's the smart city, it's the full surveillance. These cameras are so high tech that they no longer just take the visual image of your body, but they can actually take your biometric readings from afar. It is so advanced. They can actually read your emotions. They can take vital signs off of you. They can even take your heart rate, your temperature. Okay, this is why temperature guns is actually it's useless, really, because they have the technology to take your temperature gun without even using a temperature gun. That was just a mind control, kind of conditioning of the public to put their forehead, and submit themselves to the globalist directives. Okay, it's basically conditioning the whole world of men and women to follow the United Nations and the WHO and all the NGO arms of it, to follow their directives. So what I'm here sharing with you is we're taking back our sovereignty. We're taking back our powers. We are acting sui juris. Okay, we need to be self-governing, and self-governing can be translated within your community, and that is creating your local ordinances. That is actually something you can do personally. They're not telling you this. You actually can go right into your city hall and make demands. Okay, never ask. For one thing, I tell my people, the people I've been coaching for the last 5 years, okay, I've led many groups. For my own town, it was Davis Anti-5G Microwave Network, DAMN for short. And then after we won against the 5G, 4G small cell deployment, I moved on to a bigger forum, and I opened up my I had actually written notices of liability against the 5G, which was international in scope. So what I had done was I opened that up to the public, and I ended up leading over 500 people internationally. And this was back in 2020, 2021. And since then, I've also written a second notice of liability, which was against the injections. So I have a whole gamut of letters I've written. And during that time, I've also written cease and desist letters, like you wouldn't believe. I also stopped the temperature gun in my hospital through my cease and desist letter that I written. It was only 2 pages long. So I'm really accustomed to knowing how to write these documents so that it follows their procedures. Okay, I'm not stepping out of line. I am actually following my due process in enforcing them to follow their due process. And it has nothing to do with science. Again, the science is just a support, okay? It's just your support reasons for doing what you need to do, but you need to focus on rules of procedure. They have rules of procedure when it comes to exercising they're never really mandates, but they call them quote unquote mandates, okay? And also how they get projects through. Projects have to go through a process. They have to go through due process as well. The actions of the local leaders, they have set procedures that they have to follow in order for a project to be brought forth, accepted, funded, and approved. Okay, so I'm going to get into the details. Okay, so when you're bringing, and I love the idea of the structure, the discussion about the structure of water. Well, let's bring structure back into our government. It right now it's fallen apart. It's been falling apart, and this is actually a really beautiful opportunity for all of us now to step in. When all these leaders are being exposed of all this corruption, that's a good thing. That means it gives us an opportunity to come in with our resonant truth. What is beauty? Beauty is structure. Beauty is resonance. Beauty is perfection. And this is when the powers of the truth, of your words, of your actions, of your written word are going to resonate through the city halls. And why the local municipalities is such a powerful place to be for you to exercise these powers is that we have actually abilities to stop trespasses through not just the industry, but also the state level and the federal, as well as the international. So that by setting these ordinances, you can actually create a protective bubble, an umbrella of requirements that sets a buttress against any invading state, federal, and especially international, quote unquote, mandates that are not law nor legal. Okay, so there's a lot of steps that you need to take, when you're navigating through the government, and I'll try to distill it down to a few key points. Is that, first of all, you need to go in there and gather intel. Don't go in there blazing with the guns, because you don't know who you're talking with. You don't even know where they stand. And the point is, you actually want to stay in honor through the whole process, because you are actually starting your legal process the moment you step in. The moment every email transaction you write between you and any staff member from the attorney, the city managers, who are paid. Okay, they're paid. They're not your public servants with an oath, but still, you're going to be interfacing with all of them. The head planners. Okay, so from the head planners all the way up to the city council members, that is all public record on that. That is your legal foundation. Okay, this is all adding to your legal. What is it that you're constructing? Okay, this is you're constructing a legal case. You're building on your legal case. So when you have that in mind, you're going to realize that, well, it doesn't matter how they react to you. If they react positively to you, that's great. That's great. But you still keep going. Okay, you still have to follow your due process. And if they don't act favorably, and they're either ignoring you or denying the truth, that's okay too. You just keep going. You keep stating your truth. You write it. You make demands. You write cease and desist letters. Okay, there are really no limits to what you can do to put your truth out there. If they don't react, again, you're building your case. And everything you do is going to be evidence held up in the court of law. Okay, so first of all, I share with you, go in there, get your intel, get the material that you need so that you can make intelligent claims. Okay, when you go in, ask for several things. You'll want to get engineering plans for past cell tower deployments, what is current, as well as what is going to happen in the future, especially those plans. You want to ask specifically for, have there been new permits submitted for 4G, 5G, 6G, small cell antennas to cell towers? And you have a right to have the permits. These are all public projects. And I personally have the engineering plans, and you'll want to get the engineering plans. They can submit them on a disk. They can submit them on, what do you call this, flash drives. You can have them put it all on a flash drive. So that way, it's easy to transfer. And then the second thing is, you're going to want to visit the planning department regularly. Okay. And then you're going to also want to talk with the officer who signs off on the lease agreements. You're going to want to also, number 4, start hosting meetings with everybody: the city manager, the head planner, the city attorney, the planning commissioners. And this is a missing middle point that a lot of people don't realize. It's not just the city council members who swear their oath of office, it's also the planning commissioners. Because again, remember, all projects have a process. They have to follow due process. And whenever a project is submitted by public or private interests, they themselves, they know the process. Okay, so once you get educated with the process, and you can follow the process and demand that this process be brought forth to a public hearing. It has to be brought forth publicly so that the public can intercede with public comments. And this is when everybody needs to get their feet wet and jump in. And this is why the numbers count. And I'm thankful that all of you guys are here and hearing this, because this is your part. This is where you come in. You all have to show up. When the city starts putting these items on the agenda, okay? And if they're not on the agenda, then you demand that it be put on the agenda. Once it's put on the agenda, everyone shows up and you give your testimonies, okay? And you all need to coordinate amongst yourselves that your testimonies, you make demands, you don't ask. This is not a concern, but this is a life and death situation, okay? This is serious. This isn't something that, oh, the science is out. No, the science is final. It's been final for over 80 years, okay? We've had 8 decades of science that shows proof of harm. The entire spectrum of the microwave, the terahertz waves, are damaging to all life on Earth, okay? So those are some of the general steps to just get the process started, okay? So once you do that, then it's time to get really deep. And this is when you probably want to split up into two teams. One group fighting the immediate deployment of whatever it is, small cells to cell towers, and write cease and desist letters, including all your affidavits, included in that, notices of liability. Okay, so you got one track. The second track would be finding a team of people who can go after and change the ordinance if the ordinance is not protective, which I assume it's not. Okay, so I'm assuming that there's nothing in there to protect the community against these trespassing technologies. So that second track, you want to create a team of people who are willing to work with the city attorney and the head planner. And the city manager. So those are probably the 3 people that are going to be exercising the ability to add language in there that's protective. And I'll share with you the language that briefly, I'll give you a list of the things that is protective that I was able to get put into my city, okay, is so just to give you a little background, it was not easy to do. All parts of this was not easy. And this, even changing the ordinance, getting my ordinance changed was not easy, because I was working against the city attorney who actually would not meet with me. And I'm telling you this is because just because they don't meet with you and they refuse to communicate with you doesn't mean that you've lost power. In fact, it actually gives you power, because they're not meeting of the minds with you. And you're the taxpayer, they work for you. Okay, they don't work for the UN, they don't work for WHO, they don't work for the state, nor the federal, nor the FCC, nor the industry. Okay, remember, they serve you. And so when you have a city attorney that is defiant against the people who want countermeasures against the industry, just know this, just keep at it. Send your emails, send physical letters, get the documentations in there. And especially during the public hearings, put everything out there, because it will be public record permanently. That is another key thing that all of you guys need to exercise, is putting things into the public record so that it's there permanently. That is building your case. Okay, so some of the things that I had added into my ordinance that is very key in actually preventing it from coming. It's not like we're not saying no, okay, but we do have limits. And so some of these, the main highlights I'll give you. One is under prohibited wireless facilities is setback rules of 500 feet. And California homes, as you know, they're all rolling on top of each other. So basically 500 feet was enough to keep any of the small cell antennas out of the neighborhoods, not only away from any home, but also mixed use settings. That's really important. So if you have a house in a business district, well, it applies, okay? As well as schools, okay, 500 feet from any schools. And I actually saved 2 schools from getting the small cell antennas placed right next to it, okay? And I also prevented one home that was going to have an antenna placed literally in front of his front door, steps away from his front door, because I had a light pole that was literally 20 feet away. And they were going to change that into I hate to say small, nothing's small about these things. Basically, they're just like cell tower antenna. You take a piece of their antenna and plunk it onto a light pole with the same power. Okay, it's got the same strength of power. And they don't know what I've done for them, but that's not the point. The point is that we basically saved the community. Okay, so 500 feet setback rules, okay, for schools, both public and private, and any future school sites, sensitive wildlife, as well as historical resources. Okay, number 2, noticing radius of 500 feet. Now, this is where they failed in the due processes, because the city attorney was telling them, no, you don't need to inform the local people what these projects are, that these projects are even happening. Now, the reason why we found out was because I went in. I literally physically went into the city hall, and I just asked around. I said, who's responsible for the lease agreements and of the permits, regarding any type of cell towers and or small cells. Well, so go in and ask questions, gather your intel. Okay, so public hearings is very important, and that's bringing the public in so that they can actually then give their testimonies. Regulatory compliance, okay, that's in my ordinance, my city ordinance. CEQA, California has its own NEPA version, and it's called California Environmental Quality Act. Okay, and then the enforcement of the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, that's also in our ordinance. RF emissions analysis report for individual cells, okay? And it's not just the emissions of one cell, but also the next point is the cumulative impact of all of the antennas and the existing cell towers within the vicinity of the proposed antenna or cell tower within 1,300 feet radius. Okay, so it's a cumulative impact. They have to provide that analysis, and that analysis can also be generated by the city. Okay, so RF emissions monitoring, that's built in, and that means that all cell towers, antennas, anything that broadcasts microwave radiation can be monitored indefinitely, and it can be hired by the city, which is preferable, because if you ask the industry to do this, they will hire someone like Gerald Bushberg, who's just going to, of course, turn the other cheek and say, oh no, this is all safe, and not provide any numbers. And that's all the reports that he's ever generated, never gives you any cumulative impact. In fact, they average the impact, which brings the numbers down so low artificially that it looks like it's harmless, when in fact it's not. You want to take peak measures, you want to take the top measures. Okay, you don't take a poison and average it out over time. You take the poison at its maximum value. Okay, so the other one is the jurisdiction and authority lies in the power of the police. This is actually a really unique angle of the city being able to exercise their powers. Okay, and the last but not least, I was able to remove the city attorney's inclusion of the SEC report and order. Nowhere, she wanted in there, I didn't. I had these red lines that was Xing out her verbiage. And luckily, thankfully, we were blessed with the removal of all of her proposals. So I think that was 30 minutes. So I just want to say the final point is that we are fighting a much larger agenda. However, the power of fighting this much larger agenda resides at the local level. The most effective way to win the global agenda is locally. Don't ever think that what you do is small. No, it's not. It's counter to small. It's the greatest and most important thing you could ever do. The United Nations and the WHO, they all have access directly to your mayors. Do you want your mayors to hear only the voice of the UN? Or do you want them to have a counterbalance and hear the voice of the people? If we stay silent, they have no excuse but to listen to the UN. But if we speak up and we show them that we actually hold the law, not this non-existent United Nations that is actually a corporation, by the way. It owns no land, no real land. It governs no people, yet they call it a government. It is not a government. Okay, we need to know this, and we need to know that they have no powers, and they should have no powers, because the Constitution also states that when we join forces outside of our nation, that is treason. Our unity with the United Nations is actually a treasonous act. So this is a really good start, and it's the most important start is to stop the 5G, 6G, 4G, whatever wireless deployment your city wants to call it, because that is the tool of the agenda setters, because that is a springboard from which all the smart city, all the global connection requires for them to be able to exercise their powers. If we stop this wireless mess, we not only heal our planet, but we can stop the globalist. Miracles will happen when you bring in the spiritual and know that you are serving a much greater purpose than yourself. It is service to others. And I want to thank you all for joining us, and God bless. You will win. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. You may not see me. I'm the old bald fat guy here. But we have questions. Does anyone have any questions? We have to shorten the questions so we have time for lunch. Yes, use this mic. Hold it close, please, for Lena.
Hi, Lena. My name is Charlene. I'm from Sedona, Arizona. And ironically, I'm close with Alana Freeland, and she pointed me to something in your book, and I literally saw your name this week and ended up here. So it's a beautiful connection. My vast question for you is, due process in local government different based on where you're at, or is there like a generalized due process so we can kind of be guided towards that?
It's all the same.
Okay, and then I have one other short question, because I was meeting with people in Sedona last week, and there was this conversation about the oath of office situation, and this woman was trying to say that we had to do something. Say we have new officers and they sign an oath of office, that we have to do something to accept their oath before we could ever challenge their oath. Is that true based on what you know?
I'm not understanding the question. You mean in getting a copy of their oath?
No, it's this, well, yeah, I mean, the question I'm asking is, this woman at our meeting said there was something we had to do to accept their oath, meaning like if they just took office and signed an oath, that we would have to do something as a community to recognize their oath before we could ever challenge the oath of office. Does that make sense?
I've never heard of that before.
Okay, so it's probably not true. I kind of thought it wasn't. But
okay.
Thank
well,
you.
You have to understand why they even have an oath of office. The oath of office is to serve you. It's to serve the Constitution of that state. And you need to pull up the Constitution of the state and know what that says. And have you ever read your public servant's oath of office? And also, for you to accept their oath of office, That doesn't make sense. Why? Who are they writing an oath? What are they signing their oath to?
I was just going to say.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say thank you. I didn't think it was true, but I thought I'd ask because I didn't, and I was shooting her down. So anyway, thank you for confirming.
Excellent. Yeah, Valerie, you have a question?
Hi, Lena. This is Valerie Marsh. Thank you so much. My question is just, do you have a handout or a document that can be made available to people in how to take back your city, you know, like a guide for dummies or something?
I've been working on thinking of putting a series of videos together. I've actually been coaching a lot of people through my Patreon site, and I've been doing this for 3 years. So it's all on my site. I haven't been able to publicly release it. But thank you for asking.
What's your website?
Lena Pu, well, just look up Lena Pu under patreon.com. I do ask for membership. So that's why I haven't been doing this publicly. And also because I deal with legal issues, I've been very hesitant to do this, with people I don't know. So the Patreon site actually has been a really good filter, as well as protection for myself. Because when I have people sign in, I actually have them read disclaimers.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. This is Lisa Smith from Tucson, Arizona. And in Tucson, our city council members are saying their hands are tied because the city attorney told them that. And you said that the city attorneys are being told what to do by someone else. And who is that? And how can I find out in Arizona if there's a certain place we can go to find out where they're getting their information?
Oh yeah, okay. They are getting their information from the Council of Mayors. Okay, so there's several different organizations. It's the United States Conference of Mayors, USCM, and the United Nations Framework Convention of Climate Change, World Mayors Council on Climate Change, and the ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability. There's also Global Covenant of Mayors. I mean, there's a lot of them, but those are some of the key ones that shows you how mayors are actually being brainwashed and being controlled to follow this global agenda. And you need to know this so that you go in there with your counter narrative. Otherwise, you're not going to know how to respond. And they are all being led specific narratives, just like the city attorney is. And then the city attorney is then feeding it to your local leaders. And your city attorney is their gatekeeper. They're the ones keeping your city in line. But you need to, fight against that.
Yeah, hold on. Here, Phil. We have one more question, Lena, then we have to take our lunch break. Go ahead.
Okay.
Lena, my name is Phil Good. I'm the mayor of Prescott, Arizona.
Oh, welcome. Are you getting contacted by?
I can assure you I've never accepted a call from the World Health Organization, the United Nations, or the World Economic Forum, and I never will.
Wonderful. That's excellent to hear. Because one of the city council members in my town actually told me that they're getting directives from these global unions.
Well, if I did get a call from them, I could tell them where to go.
Bless you. We need mayors like you everywhere. But I have to share that the city I come from is actually a very global run city because it's associated with the university. And the university here in my town has Monsanto money, it has Elon Musk. In fact, Elon Musk has his Neuralink contracts with
Right.
my university to do monkey experimentations. It's horrific. So you can imagine the leadership that I had to deal with.
Well, I can understand that, but I can assure you and the people here that they'll
Wonderful.
never be entertained in my office, that's for sure.
We're going to keep you in office.
In addition to the health concerns that have been expressed today, I have a very serious concerns about data security, and I know that Huawei, which has the major amount of market share for 5G technology, is a Chinese communist company. The second largest in market share, and that's quite a bit smaller, is a company called Ericsson out of Sweden, and they're controlled by the World Economic Forum. So I don't have any interest of having either one of their technologies in my community. I'm going to make sure that they never show up here.
Awesome.
You're right. We do have some problems with the FCC and their directives that we can't make decisions based upon electromagnetic radiation in communities. But we still have a lot of other tools in our tool shed to keep those cell towers from being imposed, at least in our city. So I will continue to look at that, and I'll continue to fight for it. I eliminated the use of Zoom in our city because that was developed by a Chinese communist technologist, Eric Yuan, who was denied 7 different times his visa to come into the United States until he finally was able to convince somebody to allow him to do that. And I've actually talked to several of our U.S. senators because they still have concerns about that data security. So I eliminated the use of that, even though people find it convenient. I just think it's terrible that we'll sell our souls for a couple of extra dollars coming out of a market economy in China or communist Vietnam or the convenience of a Zoom or anything else. We have to fight for our liberty and our freedom.
I just want to let you know also anything from the FCC is not law. Any of their report and order is not law and it's illegal. In fact, they've been challenged on their deployment of the 5G small cell antenna. And again, the whole NEPA requirement, they shirked. So they need to go back to the drawing board. And all the small cell antenna deployment needs to be submitted under NEPA review. And that also means that the CEQA, at least in California, also has to be obeyed, has to be followed. There are so many strategies without needing to go against the Telecommunications Act, nor even the FCC. Now, my ordinance doesn't even contain anything about the science, but we basically put limits. We put such strict limits in there, which makes it so that it's impossible for them to even put antennas in there. That's the trick, that's the strategy.